So I'm going to be hosting this morning's talks. I will be kicking off with the folks from Agora and also MPL Games, talking about how kind of things like esports and the processes of communicating with each other as players and as audiences will affect gameplay. But I'm also going to try and make sure that we keep on track with things like making sure you know who our sponsors are. It's incredibly important that we pay attention to the guys who make this very event possible. So our diamond sponsor, Agora.io, obviously one of the first speakers. They've been incredible to make it possible to make this event happen. We have our platinum sponsors. We have Unity, we have Microsoft GameStack, we have AppsFlyer, we have Facebook. And our gold sponsors include AppLovin, Credits, Nutaku, and Game Analytics. So we'll also be tweeting all day. So if you want to use the hashtag #PGCDigital to share your thoughts, that would be great. There's also a Discord channel. I don't know if you found that yet. Hopefully you have. That'll allow you to continue conversation with the speakers, to network with other attendees, and just to see what's good. Wow. Okay. And just to see what else is happening in the event. We've also got Meet to Match. I'm sure, like myself, you've got tons of meetings. So make sure you make the most of that. It's really the heart and soul of an event like this is the opportunity to catch up with people and meet them and talk to them about your business and the opportunities that you can both you can all share. So that basically sums things up. So if you have any questions along the way, then please feel free to use the Q&A button. Q&A button will allow you to share with the speakers and the panelists and myself what questions you have, and we'll try to answer those as we go along. As well as that, you can chat. So the chat section allows you to talk and make comments as we go along. So hopefully that will all make sense. So as I said, our first talk is going to kick off with a superstar session, a virtual fireside chat with Agora and MPL Games. I think we've got Ranganath from Agora with us, and I think we've also got Sai from MPL Games who's going to come and join us. Oh no, so I think Sai's not quite here yet, so hopefully he'll join us shortly. Oh, he is here, sorry. So hopefully we'll get those guys to come up onto screen any second. But as I say, this is an important session for us to learn about what we're doing in games and how we're helping each other improve the processes and opportunities in this wonderful industry of ours. So, hey guys, hi Sai, Ranganath, how are you doing? Trust you're doing well. You're both on mute at the moment, by the way.
Hey, hi, Oscar. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries, no worries. And Ranganath, how's things for you?
Hey, Oscar. Good. Thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. So I'm going to, apart from sneezing in the middle of my intro, fine, don't worry. You guys go on and talk on about what you guys are doing.
Cool, awesome. Hey, Sai, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. Appreciate that. One of the first questions most probably has been asked a million times, but let me ask this again. What led to the creation and founding of MPL?
Right. So firstly, thank you so much, Ranga, for inviting me here. So I will very quickly give a short intro to myself and what I do, and then very quickly get on to answering that question. So I'm Sai. I'm one of the founders of MPL. MPL stands for Mobile Premier League. We are a competitive esports platform based out of India. And we started in 2018, and the whole idea here was that we wanted to build a mobile platform where people could come and play any game in competitive tournaments with users across India and hopefully the world soon. In these tournaments, they can compete in these tournaments to earn money, right? Our journey has been for about, we launched the app in September 2018. It's been roughly about 20 months, and since then we've been very fortunate to have seen some incredible growth. And alongside partners like Agora, our whole idea behind MPL was very simple. We believe that in the next 5-6 years, gaming is probably going to be a skill that people will monetize and monetize well. And you've already seen that with streaming, etc., on platforms like Twitch, where people actually are earning money on a daily basis, and in fact, making gaming a livelihood. we believe that over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, like physical sports, you will also see esports athletes emerge, and you'll also see professional gamers emerge who will make gaming a way of earning a living. And we believe that we are at a point where we have the great opportunity to build a platform that enables users across the world to compete in these games using their mobile phone. And the reason why we chose mobile is, I think it's obvious to everyone, right? And while PC and console are obviously great platforms, and most of the frontier gaming happens on that. But if you want to ensure that everyone in the world has access to your platform and everyone in the world can participate in the product that you're building, then I think it's a no-brainer to go mobile, right? And that's the reason why we chose mobile as the platform.
Cool. Which actually kind of leads me to the next question, which is, you mentioned about esports and how esports is helping people actually make a living. So in this context, what do you think is the esports scenario in India, and what impact can we have to global audiences?
Right. See, I think one of the most important things is that what I strongly believe, and I think most people in the world in the next 2-3 years will also strongly believe that the market cap of esports in the next 7-8 years, after the next 7-8 years, is going to be larger than the combined market cap of all physical sports industries combined. And there's a reason for this. There's a reason for this, right? Today, Ranga, if I were to ask you, let's go play a game of football, or let's go play a game of cricket, right? I have to come over to your place, pick you up, go get a cricket bat, a ball, and a football, and find a bunch of people, and then go to a ground and then start playing. And the beauty of esports, on the other hand, is that it fundamentally opens up access to any user anywhere in the world, irrespective of where that user is. That user might be coming from a small village in India, or the user might be coming from a big city like New York or London. It really doesn't matter. It's a great equalizer, because all you need is a device, all you need is a decent internet connection. And thanks to the advances that are happening around 3G, 4G, and now eventually 5G, I think connectivity is going to be something that almost everyone in the world is going to have, hopefully, in the next 3-4 years, right? Even take India itself for an example, right? That's what changed in India, right? The past 3-4 years, the two things that changed in India quite dramatically is that everybody's got a handheld device, which is your mobile phone. Most importantly, everyone's got an internet connection thanks to what Jio has done in the country. And third, and the most important thing, I think, is that India has probably got the most advanced payments infrastructure in the world, right? Where people can pay very conveniently small amounts of monies via their bank accounts directly using UPI. And that, because of these three things coming together, right? What's happened is that there is no barriers anymore, right? Even if a user is sitting in some small village in India, the user can very actively participate in these competitions. To give you a couple of examples, right? In fact, last month we hosted a chess tournament with the support of government of Karnataka. And Karnataka is one of the states in the southern part of India, and we had about 25,000, 20 to 25,000 people compete in this tournament from across India, which was sponsored by the government of Karnataka. And we had users coming in from all parts of the country. We had our oldest user was about 67 years old, right? Our youngest user was about, I think 19 years old. So it's like you got users from across the spectrum coming and participating in these games. Now that is impossible. Now, if you were to hold a physical chess tournament, right? If you were to hold a physical chess tournament, the largest physical chess tournament probably has about 6,000 to 7,000 people. That's it. I mean, that also you have to go through so many headaches to get that done, right? And that's the beauty of what esports does, and that's the beauty of what internet did in every industry that it went to. Internet did the same for commerce. Internet did the same for entertainment, and now eventually internet is going to do the same for competitive digital sports, right? And in India especially, I think why this is more prevalent or more pertinent to India when compared to any other parts of the world is that in India we have a bulge of young users. What I mean is it's very unique that a country, 65% of a country's population is under the age of 35 or 37. Right, and that number is only going to get younger as the next 2 decades go, right? That means that a large part of this population wants to be recognized. They want to be known for what they're good at, and they really, really want to be heard in all of their. In fact, they want to be known more digitally than in the real world, right? People are more bothered about how many followers their Instagram profile has, or how many followers they've got on TikTok, than how many friends they have. I mean, that's a conversation for a different day, but that's the fact, and that is a fact, right? So we believe that competitive esports in a way is actually a great way for some of these folks to actually gain recognition and use their skills, not only in India for that matter, but the world, right? It is impossible today for someone to imagine that they would be a champion in, say, hockey, or champion in, say, cricket, if they are coming from a small village without going through 50, 100,000 hurdles. But in the future, with competitive esports, I don't think that's going to be complicated at all. I think it'll be very straightforward for a lot of people.
I believe, I also believe that at the last Asian Games, or one of the games, there was an esports competition. So that's very interesting. I was not aware of that till recently.
Yeah. So in fact, I mean, it's great that you mentioned that. In fact, one of the key things is that one of the most important things is that last time around it was basically a showcase event. It was not. But the next Asian Games, it's actually going to be a full-blown medal event. Last time also the medals were given, and in fact, India had won a bronze in the inaugural Asian Games. In fact, I think I wouldn't be surprised if esports is included in Olympics even before cricket gets included.
Yeah, given the kind of following and given the kind of participation, that's possible. Now, I know you've been in existence, like you said, for about 20 months, and 20 months is depending on what perspective you have. It's either a very short period or it's a long period. But what's changed from the time you started about 20 months ago till now on the MPL side of things, in terms of the platform or the offerings that you have?
Right. See, when we started, Ranga, I mean, in September 2018, we started with 4 very simple games, right? And people used to ask us, how can people take competitions in a fruit chopping game seriously, or how can people take competitions in a runner game seriously? And our point of view was very simple, right? The best of things are usually the most simplest of things, right? And we started with those 4 games. Today, we've got about 60 plus games on the platform, and it's no longer limited to simple games. We've got mid-core games like pool. We've got, in fact, we recently, last month, launched a really, really top-class, indigenous first-person shooter game in India. Called Rogue East. In fact, Rogue East got launched on MPL even before they got launched on the Play Store, right? And as the platform evolved, what we've now started seeing is that from those 4 simple games that we went to, we now have multiple third-party developers who are now publishing their games on the platform and are making significant amount of money and serious amounts of money. And what I see changing in the platform is that from the first phase where we started with simple games, we now have a full bouquet of games ranging all the way from mid-core to hardcore to even casual. We also have fantasy. And the biggest addition that we've made to the platform in the last 1.5 years is the addition of content, right? When these players usually become very well recognized on the platform, that is when they have a significant amount of following, because they usually top the leaderboards or they end up winning competitions. We started enabling ways in which these users can actually create content for their followers in the app, right? And that's been one of the biggest changes over the last 3 to 6 months. And in fact, we started with something as simple as audio, and now we're going to live streaming, and hopefully eventually we'll do game streaming and a whole bunch of other things as well. I think that is the biggest journey that I think would be the single most important evolution that we need to make, and we are in the process of making. That will be a big game changer.
Awesome. So glad you mentioned about live video and audio. So I have a couple of questions around that. The first one being that have your users or how have your users taken to that
Right.
switch? And the follow-up to that is what kind of decision-making process or criteria did you go through while trying to select a platform that could support live voice and video?
Right, right. So first and foremost, Ranga, like I said, we started with the simple, this was not a big strategy when we started, right? We first, our whole thing was like, we wanted to just understand whether people will be interested in creating content. It was just a thought, and we started, we started with audio, right? And we started with audio, I think in September last year, and the reason why I'll come to the reason why we chose Agora as the platform for audio. And the reason why the reason why we did audio is because it's the most easiest format of content. People don't need to think too much, right? They can just plug their headsets on and they can just keep talking. It's a very convenient way of building content. From September till date, I was just checking, I was for another reason, I was just running the numbers a couple of days back. We've till date hosted north of 4.7 million audio shows, right?
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, and we thought what was an experiment very clearly blew out of proportions. And more often than not, we just didn't, for the first few months, we didn't know how do we manage this and how do we handle this as a product and how do we create a really good offering around this. And now we've been able to do that. And not only is the fact that there were 4.7 million shows created, but till date, most of the people who created these shows actually earn a significant amount of money in a week from these shows, from their audiences, where they tip these show hosts, right?
Nice.
And the reason why we chose Agora, very simply put, is that as a product company, our focus, or as a platform, our focus is always to ensure that we provide the user with the best, we provide the user with the best experience, where the onus of innovation on the content, where the onus of innovating on the format is on us, but the onus of ensuring that we have a great a great technology platform, and the onus of ensuring that the seamless nature of the content interaction, etc., is on our partner, right? Because that, I think, in today's world, I think the most important thing is you should stick to what you are good at, and you should always work with partners to ensure that you get the best of what they are good at. And I think when we started working with Agora, I think what really surprised us was the ease at which our teams could actually plug a lot of your services into our app. And not only that, but the seamlessness with which we could provide this to our audience, right? 4.7 million of anything is not a small number, right? Sometimes in the world, when we keep hearing billions and billions of monthly active users and so on and so forth, sometimes these 4.7 million might be a small number, but 4.7 million of anything is a significant number, and to do that seamlessly is a great testament to the skills that Agora brings to the table. And now, in fact, we launched live streaming as well with you guys, and hopefully we'll see even better results with that.
Cool, awesome. So I know we have about 5 minutes before we open it up for Q&A. So I have one last question for you.
Right.
So if there's a budding entrepreneur out there that wants to get into esports or gaming, is there some advice that you would like to share with them, some experience or something that they should or should not consider?
Right. See, I think the most important thing that one should think about whenever you're trying to build a business around gaming or esports, I think is you need to unlike any other transactional businesses, like say flight ticket bookings or e-commerce or food delivery or ride hailing. The business of gaming is purely and squarely dependent on the interactive experience that the customer has while using the product. Whereas, for example, if you're doing and I'll come to why I'm saying that, right? So when you come to food delivery, right, the product is actually the service of delivery, right? Even if the app UI isn't that great, but if the food gets delivered to you 10 minutes earlier, you'll always pick and choose that product, right? Whereas in gaming and esports, the most important thing that comes down to is the experience of actually using the product. And that experience of building that product is not a function of raising a lot of capital. So that's the reason why in these businesses, I think you can create wonderful, scalable, profitable businesses, even with small sums of money. Is not like $500 million, $1 billion or $2 billion of capital, but even with like 25, 30 million, $40 million of, even I'm talking about full-blown capital to get to profitability, you will be very easily able to get to that profitability. And the second thing is, the second advice I'll give you is that once you're clear on the value proposition that your customers come to you for, you should constantly focus on building what you are good at, and always look for partners to get services in which will enhance the platform, and you don't need to build those things 0 to 1. A lot of people make the mistake of reinventing the wheel a lot. The cost of reinventing the wheel in many places is just too high, and it's just not worth it. You should focus on finding what are the best pieces of technology that are available that can be integrated with your services to provide the best experience. In fact, a zero compromise experience for your customer, and you should just plug that in. And working with you guys, I think that's one of our biggest takeaways, to be honest. We ourselves, and we are very thankful that we have this partnership.
Awesome. So with that, we'll open it up for any questions that the audience might have. If there are no questions from them, then I have a bonus question for you, which I'll save till we get to
good stuff, guys. Yeah, I mean, I have a question for you. So these sessions, these audio sessions that you've got running, is so many of them. What's the kind of type of content that people are doing? How are they engaging using audio?
The thing is, a lot of these guys use their audio to talk about multiple.
Oh, you're dropping out, unfortunately, audio-wise.
Is it better now?
It is.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we also have fantasy sports as a category in our app, right? So people keep talking about what are the best ways to make their teams. How do you pick the best possible 11 for your fantasy team? People talk about what are the best strategies for choosing which tournament to play in. How do you ensure that how do you ensure which games to play, which tournaments to play? That's the second thing. And people sometimes just keep talking general stuff about about games, about movies. In fact, some people even run singing competitions inside these audio rooms, right? So our philosophy when it comes to this is that we have the strong belief that you never judge your customer, right? You give them a tool, and as long as they stick to the community standards and they're able to build content which engages a bunch of users, they can do that. So there's singing competitions, then there's quizzing. So for example, if Oscar, you've got like 1,000 followers and you're doing an audio room and with
only 1,000.
Well, let's start at 1,000, right? So when you're doing an audio room with a bunch of folks, then you could be running a quiz competition where you could give away a little bit of in-app currency and tokens for everyone who gets it right. So a lot of people use these audio rooms to engage their audiences to only build more and more following.
Yeah, I think that's kind of key. I think what I find interesting about it is that, yes, this is a really kind of a poignant kind of role in the esports world. But I think even those people who aren't necessarily doing esports, there's lots of opportunities to use audio. I remember we had struggles when I was at PlayStation Home back in the day because the PlayStation 3 didn't have voice comms, and we were trying to find ways to make that work. And I think it was one of those things. I mean, we found a way to make it work, but it was a bit of a struggle. But it feels like a real missed opportunity. One of the joys for me about audio is that it doesn't have to interfere with what else is going on in the game. And I think that's an aspect that I think game designers need to think about. It's like, how could we apply these kind of tools in ways that actually can make community bonding stronger?
Yep.
So, I mean, do you have any kind of any sort of tips and tricks for people about that?
Right. I think what you'll see a lot happening is that voice is also going to become an input mechanism apart from your joystick or apart from the mobile screen. I think in the next 5-6 years, you will see a lot of games using voice commands like, hey, you know what? I mean, you can, and voice can do wonders for games. I think one is that. I think that's something that people should look out for. And I think especially in semi-casual or mid-core games, you should figure out ways in which you could add voice as a way to make people interact more within the game and cue them for their voice. So like, for example, a small thing that PUBG does and does so well is that
And if you can build spatial awareness into that, then that can help moderate some of the kind of issues about, too much noise, or maybe you attract people you don't want to hear. I know that's an issue that can be a problem. So, a wider kind of thought on it, though, is that obviously there's moderation issues that go with this. How do you deal with that side of things? Oh, I think we've got a static Sai. I don't know if you want to kind of respond to that, Ranganath. I know that it's not really, it's more kind of a game thing, but if you have any sort of views on it.
Was your question around moderation of content?
Yeah, so if people are using voice, obviously it's a lot harder to moderate. I'm presuming that the majority of the kind of, to my mind, again, this is an area I've had to deal with in the past. So for me, it's all about reporting and making sure you can block people, but it's also about creating a climate in your game where people understand what acceptable behavior is. But do you have any other sort of tips and tricks in terms of dealing with kind of moderation issues?
I think probably one of the answers could be AI-based moderation, but that's going to take time because each language, each dialect is so different. So
and you also find people use code words at that point. And
yes.
So yeah, it's always going to be tricky, but I don't think people should be put off by that issue, because so much of it comes from creating a climate of a culture for that game.
Yes, probably Sai is back now.
Hey, Sai, you're back. Great. Sorry.
Sorry.
I was just asking about if you had any sort of tricks and tips on the moderation aspects of audio.
Yeah, so I think in the moderation aspects, the most important thing is to see the best communities are all the best moderated communities are self-moderated, right?
Yes.
And the key is to create strong economic incentive for people who are doing the right thing, and very clear economic disincentive for people who are doing the bad thing. And economics doesn't mean money. At the end of the day, economics in games can be multiple different things, right? You can lose your account, you can lose your status, you can lose multiple different things. And the best ways of doing that is by tying their behavior to this economic incentives, or by creating some kind of in-game system which rates you based on how your shows are or how well behaved you are.
Yeah, and I think actually that's really key. And again, for those game designers in the room, I think that's something that needs to be considered whenever you have kind of the communication of players or the players. You've got to think about the shadow that casts, and the more that you integrate positive behavior into great outcomes in the game, the better the results will be. Is that a fair summary?
That's a fair summary, absolutely.
So there's a question here. Obviously, we've had a really interesting time for esports, particularly in games. When we see FIFA, top Premiership players in the UK playing FIFA to raise money for the NHS, this whole idea about competitive esport gameplay has become more norm. Are you seeing that in general for you? And do you think that we'll get to a stage where esports broadcasts are going to become mainstream, maybe even taking over some aspects of sport?
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. I mean, it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when, right? I think what happened due to the unfortunate events with respect to COVID is that some of these things, you started seeing glimpses of some of these things happening now. But I think once things do come back to normal, you'll see that, the broadcast of esports might go down a little. But I think in the next 4-5 years, as you will see more and more esport broadcast replace traditional broadcasts, because just the interactivity of the content and just the flexibility that you have with the content and the participation that audience can do. For example, if there's a physical game happening of football, there's only so much that an audience can do, but in esports there's so much more that they can do. Because of those things itself, you'll see a lot more happen.
Yeah, and I know there are, I won't say the names of the companies, but there are some friends of mine who run teams where you can have the viewing going on, you can put overlays of information, you can have voting going on, you can have interactions. And I think, you know, when you can look at the way the voice can do that in ways that doesn't interfere with what you see, I think there's real potential there. I also think that to some extent, it's already happened. If you look at the volume of game video related content, it's actually already exceeds the combined volume of Netflix, HBO, Hulu, and most of the video streaming services. Now, obviously, it's more splintered, but that's just video. So I think, you know, we although esports has got a huge way to come, and I think that there's esports to me is like this kind of top, you know, sort of 1% of the ambition. The whole idea about game video has become something that's become synonymous for anyone under 24. Trying to find someone under 24 watching mainstream broadcast TV is like looking for a ghost. They don't exist. A bit unfair, but you know what I'm saying. But I think actually this is we are the premier digital entertainment format, and that's going to come out in sport. It's going to come out in expression. Those screaming influencers are a kind of key part of it. And when anyone can set up an audio stream in the game talking about what they love and what's important to them, and they can generate an audience and a community around that, and maybe even a revenue stream around that, that can be really empowering.
Absolutely.
And now I think that's all the questions we've got at the moment. Did you have any last minute thoughts, guys?
I think this has been very insightful, as always, having a conversation with Sai. So thank you again, Sai, so much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ranga. Thank you so much, Oscar. Have a great day, guys.
Great. Have a great day, guys. Thanks. So yeah,
Thank you so much.
So thanks to those guys for their great talk. I mean, I think for me, this isn't just a question of esports. For me, this is a question about how do we make sure we create engaging community experiences and look at all of the different tools available to us, whether it's from capturing video moments, whether it's from actually capturing gameplay, from actually capturing the emotions and the conversations around the game, either visually or audibly. And I think if we can understand how the power of that, there's a lot of potential. For those of you who don't remember, there was a thing called Everyplay. I was the evangelist for that for Unity when Unity acquired it. I still think that's a missed opportunity in general. This actually thinking about where in your game is the zeitgeist moment and how do you engage with that. The number of games where you could have an amazing moment where you could capture in gameplay the face of the person playing, the moment of play, and imagine sending that as a bazinga moment to your mate when you've just beaten them at something. That's something that is emotional, powerful, and it's about building memories and stories with each other. And I think as designers, as game makers, we should be considering that because it's part of the experience.